Okay, welcome to a new course that's called My Digital Values. This is available to all grade 7 teachers within the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I'm just going to provide a quick overview of the course. I'm going to a few of the activities and highlight some of the features we've embedded throughout the modules. The first thing that students will see is the course homepage with a quick welcome message to the course, which is called My Digital Values. And this is connected to Ignition, a series of modules available to you from a company called EverFi. And all of that information has been made available to the grade 7 teachers through various messaging by the board. The students receive an overview of the activities that the teacher will provide them with access to Ignition, and once they are logged in to Ignition, the 3 modules that we have connected to are highlighted in red. So what students need to do at this point is go into the content section, and as you'll notice, I'm looking at this as a student. When you're a teacher, you see things a little bit differently. When you go into the content, for instance, you won't see a progress bar. But you can always go ahead and see what students will see and see the student view when you select View as Student up in the top right-hand corner. So when the students go into content, there are 3 modules and each has an activity or a couple of activities in them. The overview for students explains how the activities are set up. We also have this explained to you, the teacher, in our teacher's guide. But basically, each lesson is divided into 3 parts, kind of like a minds-on action and consolidation type of lesson. The first is a connect option or activity for students to hook them into the topic that they'll be covering in that activity. And then there are a series of features called Collaborate and Think, where there's various tasks students can do, such as reading content, discussing with their peers, or analyzing a video or image. And then each lesson concludes with Innovate and Create. At this point, they can choose how they would like to consolidate and communicate their learning. So this information is available to the students, and they can go right back out to Table of Contents, and at your direction, they can get right into any of the modules and the activities inside those modules. This is an asynchronous course, so you don't have to cover these activities in any specific path or any specific order. And so we have them here as just titles, not sort of like in any order. So you can go into My Catholic Values in the Viral World, Activity 1. What happens is that there's an explanation to the students, but also for you, the teacher, linking this activity or this module to something that's in Ignition. And then the link to Ignition is provided here as well. So what you have here are the learning goals that the students will cover in the EverFi module that they link out to, and the content of those of that module. So in my Catholic, Living My Catholic Values, it connects to something called Viral World in EverFi, and they will learn about things like identity theft, secure social networks, and digital addiction. So what we've done is obviously provided a Catholic lens through which to look at these topics, and that is covered in the actual activities themselves. So the first activity begins with a Catholic social teaching. So you will notice that each of the activities starts with a Catholic social teaching, and that provides a framework for the lesson. And we also touch on that social teaching in perhaps the content or in the consolidation activities. So there will always be some kind of hook and activity to get the kids started. This course, these 3 modules, are designed with a blended learning blended learning in mind, which means that you can have the students do things independently, beforehand, perhaps at home, but there are also activities that require face-to-face interaction. You can find this explained more thoroughly in the teacher guide. So, just as an example here in the Collaborate and Think, there is an option for students to complete a quiz. When the student goes in, so I am again acting as a student, to the quiz, they will have to scroll up. Unfortunately, D2L sort of takes them to a blank page, but they'll have to scroll up. and the student can begin the quiz. Now this student is not really a student, this is just looking at it as a student. If you actually want to take on the persona of a student, you will X out of here and then go to your class list as teacher, and you will impersonate a student. So this is actually, you'll be allowed to enter into various features as a student. So when the student is in activity 1 going to take the quiz, they will click into quiz, am I addicted to technology, and again scroll up and start the quiz. Okay, so they will go through various questions. As they go through each question, they have the option to save or save all of their responses, and then they can submit the quiz. All right, so that's one feature that we are using within D2L. It's fairly straightforward. Now I'm looking at it again as a teacher. I can go into quizzes and take a look at the quiz here. I can make any edits to it, so add, edit questions. If you feel like there's questions that aren't appropriate for your students or you would like to modify them to be more specific to the types of students in front of you, you can certainly do that. And there are various things, restriction functions in here where you can open up the quiz for students for a specific amount of time. So they might do this on their own, and when they come back to class, they can pick up with the face-to-face interaction, which is a discussion post. So another function that we're using within D2L is to enter into a discussion, and we'll just look at this as a student again. Unfortunately, it bumps you out of the content when you impersonate the student or you view it as a student. So the discussion post, whenever there's a question asked, the kids will enter a discussion. And again, just always remind them to scroll up. It's always going to be at the top of the screen, but it might not, unfortunately, take you to the top. And so they will start a new thread. So simply, students read the question, start a new thread. They would title their thread, and they would post their discussion. They can also embed things into the discussion, such as a video from YouTube. They can also embed images, and they can insert a URL, for instance. And the other thing that we can, which is also an option, is under Add Attachments, they can record their response. So if you have any students perhaps who are uncomfortable with writing and having their writing visible to other people in the class, they can certainly record their audio and then upload it, and students can play it as an MP3 and respond to their thoughts. So that's the discussion feature, and that's something that is available throughout this course that students will be using. And then there is every course ending with an innovate and create, or every module, sorry, ending activity in a module, ending with an innovate and create. So what that is basically obviously the consolidation activity, and we've tried to build in a lot of choice for the students. And for also the ability to build a classroom community. So this activity, for instance, has students posting their 5 best rules for grade 7 students' use of technology from the point of view of a parent or a guardian. And they will sort of curate or post their thoughts and then create their criteria together, and then they can finalize their product. We do offer a bunch of suggestions for web tools or apps that students can use, and in the teacher guide we provided you a list. These, when you're in it as a student, link out to the actual web tools and apps, and you can certainly take a look at them, see if they're appropriate for your students. Most are already available on your school's iPads, as each school has received their rollout iPads this year. And so those are suggested. Certainly you do not have to use anything too high tech if you're not comfortable with it, or the students perhaps are not familiar with it. We don't want that to drag down the delivery of this module. But if you do have a student body there that is capable, then those are there, and certainly the kids can suggest things that they would like to use themselves as well. So those are the first 2 activities. When we go into activity 2, again, we have the Catholic social teaching, framing the lesson. There is a Twitter activity centered on Pope Francis, some collaborative activities for the students to use. And we've also tried to highlight our TCDSB materials, such as the Virtues of the Month, so that students can become more familiar, but also start to make the connections between those things and their online activities. I'd just like to go down to the Innovate and Create section of this lesson and just highlight the fact that there's a bunch of different options for students. We try to differentiate as much as possible to cater to different learning styles, but also to have some high-tech and low-tech options here. And at this point, students will be submitting things either to you or the Dropbox. So just depending on your comfort level or what works for you, when students submit things to the Dropbox, they simply have to select the link. And when they get into the Dropbox, again, scrolling to the top, they can again record audio, so they can leave perhaps a comment for you or feedback. They can post a link inside here, and they can also add a file. So sometimes their product might be a link to something they've created online, and that's where they would put the link. And you, as a teacher, would simply go to your Dropbox link up here, and you'll see all of the drop boxes for the different activities, and you would just click into it, and as each student submits, you would see them there in the Dropbox. I would like to highlight just a couple more features to familiarize yourself with the D2L environment and make sure that the delivery of this course is pretty smooth for you. If we just go take a look at the responsible use activity 1, we have also used the checklist feature. And that is pretty simple for the student to use as well. It's a checklist for them to check that they're ready to hand in the assignment or the consolidation activity for this actual activity. And so they just use the checklist, again, scrolling to the top, unfortunately. They would just check it off, and you as the teacher, again, when you look at this as a teacher, you can look at the checklist option here, and it will come up that students have finished this checklist, and you can see their progress. The other feature I want to highlight, again in responsible use activity 1, is that just like in many of our activities, we do link out to Word documents and PDF documents for the students to actually work on or read, and that will just be a simple docking of the anticipation guide for a download, and we're using Chrome here. And once they have this open, they can edit it and complete their work and then submit it to you however you like. They can save it and submit it to the Dropbox, or you can print these. We do have them available as Blackline Masters in the teacher guide. And so those are that's a feature that's available as well. There are some features here too where students can link out to larger versions of things, such as this research guide, which might be useful for them in completing the task for this activity. And then I do also want to highlight the fact that there is a video in the activity for internet use, and this happens to be a video from Learn 360, and unfortunately there's a small miscommunication between D2L and Learn 360. So when students are using or viewing this in Chrome, it's a very simple fix. There's a little shield in the top right hand corner, and you will just ask it to load unsafe scripts. Don't worry, they are actually safe, in order for that video to play, and you will notice that it will indicate here that you have some unsafe scripts running, which is just the Learn 360 video. There are instructions available here for the students as well for every browser that they might be using, and once they have that enabled, it will work every single time they try to view this video. So I hope that you will find this course useful to you and your students, and we certainly invite your feedback moving forward as we develop even more great resources on digital citizenship.